How do the neurons respond during the binocular rivalry? So neural activities during binocular rivalry have been recorded both in monkeys and humans. And I say it easily, but the experiments itself are really hard. And it's amazing that they have been able to do this. All right, so the first thing is that recording neural activity during binocular rivalry in monkeys. So what the researcher did was to train monkeys to report binocular rivalry. And the way to do it is to present various stimulus, and then they rewarded monkeys to, when they press the button or pull the lever, only when that particular stimulus is presented, but not the other. And then sometimes they presented a kind of similar looking stimulus and so on to confuse the monkeys. And then until the report becomes very, very reliable, they continue to train the monkey. And it takes months to years to do this. And then eventually they can do this kind of task, but still the question remains. In the case of the monkeys, it's quite unclear whether the property of the binocular rivalry is similar to what we have, what we experience. So the first thing the researchers needed to do was to characterize binocular rivalry in monkeys. And how can we do that? So here comes the two properties that I mentioned in the last video, right? So this is the duration of the binocular rivalry. As I said, it's a very peculiar type of the distribution that is called a log normal distribution or a gamma distribution. And monkeys actually does show very similar kind of pattern. And so, response distribution seems to be very similar between the monkeys and the humans. And another critical evidence is this contrast dependency. As I explained in the last figure, if you try to enhance the duration of the binocular rivalry of one person, strengthening that stimulus doesn't actually do much. And as you see, strengthening the stimulus result in this stable mean dominance. But weakening the other side actually increases this duration of the other side. And it turns out that the monkey also shows the same kind of a property. So it's hard to imagine why monkey would also do something similar like this in humans without really knowing that this is the kind of the behavioral result that you would see in the humans. It's quite from the subjective point of view, that when the one stimulus becomes stronger, then that is supposed to be strong stimulus, right? So if both human subjects or monkey can see that oh, now I'm paired with a strong stimulus versus standard stimulus. So I can imagine that people and also monkey can expect that, oh, I should actually see it longer, but it's not that the other side is much more strikingly increasing the stimulus, weakening the other side of the stimulus. Okay, so with this type of the behavioral confirmation first, next, the researchers, David Leopold and Rossis, started to record the neurons activity while monkeys are reporting the binocular rivalry, seeing this or the other. And they carefully looked at the eye movement of the monkeys so that eye movement cannot explain the change of the binocular rivalry response. So here is one particular trial's response. Over the 16 seconds, they presented the rivalry stimulus in the beginning, okay? And then monkeys started to report right orientation, right tilt or left tilt grating, starting from like 2 seconds after this trial. And then after 1 second, the trial itself started. And then initially there was a burst of activity, but then it started to resolve and so on. And then this particular neuron actually preferred the stimulus of this left orientation kind of stimulus. No, sorry, right orientation. So it's this type of the stimulus. And then what it turns out is that before starting to perceive this red, right orientation stimulus, this particular neuron tended to start increasing the response, like here, and then also here, and so on. There is some kind of delay, but that's what they found. All right. And this particular neuron, neuron 133, started firing more a few seconds before the monkey reported left tilt, red horizontal bars. So just to mark it, something like, when there's green, meaning the right tilt, and then switch to the left, there's an increase. Green to left, there's a switch, increase, and so on. Green to left, there's an increase. Green to left, there's an increase, and so on. You see this, in many different kind of transition. Okay, so that's what they found in this particular neuron. And they found this type of neurons, roughly 20% of the neurons in the B4. And that's the type of the neurons that are summarized on the left side. So when the stimulus, when the monkey starts to report preferred stimulus, like left tilted grating, just before the monkey press a button, the neuron firing increase and then goes down. And then on the other hand, when the stimulus changes into null stimuli that neuron doesn't prefer, then the response goes down before this switch happens here. But surprisingly, roughly 20% of the other neurons actually does the opposite. What it means is that when the monkey starts to report the preferred stimuli, some neuron actually starts to decrease the firing. And then that same neuron starts to increase the firing when the monkey starts to report null stimulus that neuron doesn't prefer to respond. That's the case of this B4, but also similar thing has been reported for the MT neurons as well. B4 and MT neurons seems to do this kind of anti-correlation. And the meaning of this is currently unclear. Next, and then this is a case of the IT neurons during the binocular rivalry. Here, this particular neuron really preferred to respond to the monkey face, but not to the sunburst stimulus. So when the left and the right eye receives both sunburst stimuli, then neurons firing goes down, right? And then if it's a mixture of the monkey and sunburst during this period, it stays the same. And then gradually it started to become binocular rivalry phase. And then during this period, if the monkey was receiving, reporting that, oh, I'm seeing actually sunburst pattern, then this particular IT neuron stays really low in terms of firing. But then again, when monkey started to report that I'm seeing a phase, predicting that kind of report, few seconds before, this neuron starts to fire like really crazy. Okay. And then it goes down when the monkey starts to report again the sunburst pattern. So here, this is a reduction of the firing before the phase perceptor finishes. And then finally, around this time, they presented both eyes with a monkey face, and then that generated with a little bit of the delay burst of the activity in this neuron. And then a monkey started to report that, oh, I'm seeing face. And then continues to fire like this way. Okay. So by doing this kind of system research systematically from B1, B2, B4, MT, and then IT areas, Logothetis and colleagues have found that the initial areas like B1, B2 was low in terms of proportion of the neural correlates of consciousness during the binocular rivalry. And then B4, MT, there are 20% of the neurons that positively correlate and negatively correlate 20%. And then in the IT areas, the positive correlation was found almost like 90%. And this type of the study has been extended more, including thalamus and also other areas such as MST or LIP parietal areas, or FEF and left lateral prefrontal cortex, that is prefrontal areas, executive function. And within the thalamus, the LGN is the gateway to the cortex, and that there almost no neurons were correlated with the consciousness. And then within B1, B2, it's almost always the case that only 10 to 20% of the neurons are correlated. But that's kind of counterintuitive if you think about the fact that the B1 lesions result in the total blindness in the blind side. But that's also, this 10 to 20% proportion is consistent with the argument from last week that B1 neurons are not responsive to conscious experience. And then mid areas such as MT and B4 are middle level correlation. And this within thalamus, the higher level of thalamus is correlated more with the conscious person and so on. And then the higher level areas, including PFC, are more correlated with the conscious percept reports. Okay. So in summary, monkeys can be trained to report their conscious perception during binocular rivalry. And that's supported by the compelling psychophysical evidence, and that supports the validity of the study of the binocular rivalry in monkeys. And that there are extensive recordings of neurospiking research. They revealed that less NCC are found in the RE visual areas, and the more NCC found in the higher visual areas plus prefrontal cortex. And then mixed NCC, anti-correlated ones, can be found in the middle visual areas. And so the next question is that can we find similar results in the human single unit recording? And that's what we are going to take a look next.